They called me too basic for the bridal shower, so I pulled the plug on everything. Vanessa Morales slipped through the sliding door of Buttercup Cafe, her arms full of brightly colored, hand-tied flower garlands that had taken hours to craft. The cafe's warm, inviting interior smelled of fresh coffee and cinnamon rolls, but beneath the casual buzz, Vanessa felt a ripple of nerves flutter in her chest. Today wasn't just any day. It was the bridal shower for Harper, her best friend since college. Vanessa had been named maid of honor, a role her quiet nature hadn't prepared her for, but one she'd embraced with relentless determination. She wanted everything to be perfect, down to every detail of her modest, handmade decorations. Her thrift store yellow cardigan hung loosely over a soft cotton dress, contrasting sharply with the polished, designer-clad women stepping around her, chatting with bright lipstick smiles and manicured nails. As she arranged the vanilla-scented candles on the long oak table, each stamped delicately with Harper's name, a sharp laugh cut through the soft hum of conversations behind her. Vanessa froze, heart stuttering. From a cluster gathered near the mirrored wall, the unmistakable voice of Shelby, Harper's cousin, drifted over with thinly veiled disdain. Vanessa's added again with her basic Pinterest stuff. The words landed like a slap wrapped in silk. Vanessa caught the glance Shelby shot toward the table, piled with glossy catering brochures. Forgotten perhaps in haste by someone else, their sleek black and gold covers catching the room's soft light. Shelby rapidly slipped her phone back into her oversized tote, her faux smile brittle as glass. Vanessa's fingers tightened on the garlands. The sting of being called basic felt less like criticism and more like erasure. She glanced around the room, catching Harper's distracted smile, caught somewhere between gratitude and embarrassment. The contrast was stark. Vanessa's handmade treasures versus the anonymous polish of high-end planning left unrecognized. Her cardigan felt heavier on her shoulders, the cozy thread suddenly suffocating. Yet among the swirling discomfort, her gaze landed on a small, faded receipt sticking out from her wallet, the booking confirmation for the event space, printed neatly with her name on it. It was a quiet anchor she hadn't noticed until now. Taking a deep breath, Vanessa reminded herself why she was here. For Harper, for friendship, for the belief that carefully made things and quiet hearts could still sparkle in rooms like this. But the sharpness in Shelby's laughter echoed in her mind as she straightened a disheveled garland, an invisible thread of tension twisting tighter. Today was just the beginning. The room buzzed softly as guests trickled in, chatting amid the glow of overhead burlap lanterns. Vanessa lingered near the decorations she'd painstakingly made. The hand-painted signs, the vanilla candles delicately stamped with Harper's name, and the pastel flower garlands hanging unevenly but full of heart. Her hands felt sticky with leftover glue, and the scent of lavender and beeswax mingled in the air around her. Yet, as the crowd gathered, Vanessa sensed a shift. Harper's cousin, Shelby, moved through the room like a performer taking center stage, her black stilettos clicking confidently against the polished hardwood floor. Shelby gathered a small group near the buffet, whispering sharply with a pointed glint in her eye. No one had mentioned it to Vanessa, but suddenly, like a veil pulling away, the theme was changing. The soft, homemade feel Vanessa had labored for was quietly dismissed. Without consulting her, Shelby flicked on a sleek slideshow on the mounted screen. It featured glossy photos of chic venues and designer floral arrangements, images completely foreign to Vanessa's simple vision. The diner's laughter turned to murmurs as Shelby's voice floated above, clear and rehearsed. "We're updating the theme to a more modern glam vibe," she announced with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Vanessa's flavored teas, arranged in delicate glass pitchers with sprigs of fresh mint, sat untouched on the side table. Shelby swept bolder, hovering to pour everyone samples of the designer mocktails she'd commissioned last minute, dazzling in neon hues and extravagant rimming sugar. "Try these. They're from the mixologist I hired for the rehearsal dinner," Shelby said, crowding Vanessa's spot with confident elegance. Vanessa shifted awkwardly, barely able to hide the pang of disappointment as her hours of preparation evaporated into the background. Her eyes found a flicker of kindness in Harper's stepmother, Diane, who caught Vanessa's glance and gave an almost imperceptible nod, an empathetic anchor amid the social tide meant to wash her away. Diane's smile was soft, almost apologetic, as if acknowledging a truth the others ignored. Vanessa's breath hitched briefly, a small haven of warmth in a sea of cold judgments. The jab lingered as Shelby, lounging near the minibar, tossed out a careless, "We should totally do a champagne wall next time," as if the current event barely warranted Maya's efforts. That comment flared quietly in Vanessa's chest, not just dismissive, but a sharp reminder. If she wanted to keep up here, she'd have to play by Shelby's rules. Tension hung thicker as Vanessa reached into her bag and pulled out the small fold of paper with the final headcount reminder. An email from Harper, highlighting the looming Monday deadline for wedding RSVPs, along with a note, "You're in charge of getting the list done." The weight settled over her like a stone. The party was slipping from her hands, and with that deadline closing in, she knew she'd need more than goodwill to hold on to her part in the day, and maybe in Harper's trust. Yet, amid the hum of laughter and clinking glasses, Vanessa tucked that folded note back into her wallet. It was more than a deadline. It was a challenge waiting for her to rise. "If a moment like this ever hit close to home, I'd love to hear how you found your way forward." Vanessa sat at her small kitchen table, the glow from her laptop casting shadows against the faded wallpaper. Over the past 2 days, she'd made countless attempts to bridge the growing distance between her and Harper's circle. Carefully crafted messages suggested merging her rustic decor ideas with the slicker, modern glam vibe Shelby had introduced. She proofed drafts of emails and texts, each time hesitating before hitting send. Every outreach was met with polite, quick replies or, worse, silence lurking in the group chat's endless thread. It was as if her name had become a ghost in that digital chain, a voice fading beneath the louder, more confident commands from Shelby and the others. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard once again, the cursor blinking on an almost ready apology text. "Maybe I'm making too big a deal out of this," Vanessa thought, chest tightening with a quiet ache. She almost typed out her surrender. "Maybe it's best if I step back." But her thumb trembled, and the words never left their cage. The fear wasn't just of losing a role. Her heart yearned for Harper, for that friendship fractured by this social storm. As the sun dipped behind towering pines outside her window, Vanessa's phone pinged. A new message from Diane, Harper's stepmother, who had been a quiet comfort since the shower began. "Don't forget, you're the one who reserved the venue. You've done so much." The words, plain and unadorned, landed softly like a lifeline. Vanessa's breath hitched in relief. There it was, a glimmer of hope she hadn't let herself see before. Amid the chaos, she still held a thread of control, a fact supported by something tangible, unshakable. Reaching into her purse, Vanessa pulled out the worn receipt she'd stuffed inside the wallet weeks before, a simple, faded slip showing her name as the official booker of the Buttercup Cafe event space. The receipt felt crisp between her fingers, real and grounding, contrasting with the vague plans tossed around after Shelby's takeover. For the first time, hope stirred beside the echo of rejection. If the venue, the heart of the whole celebration, was still hers to manage, maybe the narrative wasn't finished. Vanessa leaned back in her chair, the cool breeze through the cracked window brushing her forehead. The quiet room felt vast now, not lonely. She wasn't yet defeated, just caught between fading trust and rising resolve. The weekend's disheartening moments painted in her mind, but so did the possibility of reclaiming her place. Her fingers tapped lightly against the table, a steady rhythm matching her slow but steady heartbeat. It wasn't over, not yet. The morning light crept hesitantly into the Buttercup Cafe's back storage room, casting long shadows over boxes and bags strewn carelessly across the floor. Vanessa pushed open the door and froze. What was supposed to be neat stacks of her carefully arranged decorations were now toppled, scattered like forgotten memories. The box holding her personalized vanilla candles lay shattered, the soft wax melted and smeared. Tiny shards of glass glinted under the harsh fluorescent light. A faint, lingering scent of spilled wax hugged the stale air, pressing on Vanessa's chest with a quiet weight. The sight struck her like a cold wave. She knelt briefly, touching the broken pieces with trembling fingers, the fragility of everything she'd built laid bare. A sudden sharp voice echoed from the hallway behind her. "I told the decorators to get rid of the basic stuff," Shelby said as she sauntered in, a tone almost casual, but with an edge Vanessa couldn't ignore. Shelby's eyes flicked over the mess, lips curling into what she called a smile. "Honestly, no offense, but the homemade stuff just didn't fit with the rest of the theme." Her words felt like blunt needles, each one poking at the hours Vanessa had poured into the shower. Vanessa's hands clenched, but she held back a sharp retort. Something in Shelby's next words made her pause. "I didn't actually sign off on the final catering changes yet. They're still waiting on Vanessa's silly confirmation email, I guess." The careless admission slipped out with an offhand shrug, but to Vanessa, it was a thread unraveling the story. Shelby's power wasn't absolute. This meant the changes to the guests' menu, the drinks, the very heart of the event, were hanging on one last confirmation: hers. The room felt colder suddenly, the flickering fluorescent buzzing overhead, matching the sudden rush in Vanessa's veins. She reached into her purse and pulled out the worn receipt she'd tucked away after booking the venue. The paper was crumpled, but unmistakably hers. The booking was under her name. Approvals, contracts, every necessary clause rested quietly behind that crinkled slip. For months, she'd thought this was just about decorations. But here was a lever she hadn't known she still held. Her breaths came steady now, despite the sting of broken candles and rejection. Vanessa could feel the rising tension coil, but underneath it surged a new sense of control, flickering into life. She folded the receipt carefully and tucked it back into her wallet, the cool weight a reminder of what was still hers to protect. Outside, the noise from the main room floated faintly, a reminder that the clock was ticking. Monday's headcount deadline loomed closer with every passing hour. Vanessa's heart pounded in rhythm with that ticking clock, matching the pulse of urgency she'd hidden inside for too long. Today wasn't just about salvaging a shattered shower. It was about reclaiming respect and holding to the promises no one yet wanted to see. When dignity finally speaks, who tends to listen in your world? Vanessa sat at her kitchen table, the morning light casting soft patterns through the window blinds onto the scattered papers before her. She unfolded the booking contract for the Buttercup Cafe venue, crisp, official, and unmistakably in her name. Her eyes traced the fine print, a clause requiring her written approval for any changes to catering, decor, or event details. The kind of clause that wasn't just a formality, but a real safeguard. The certainty in those words steadied her. Her phone buzzed with a message from Diane, Harper's stepmother, her quiet ally through this storm. "Remember, if you need backup, I have the venue manager on speed dial," the text read. Vanessa felt a small warmth bloom. Here was more than encouragement. Here was actionable support. She dialed Diane immediately. Their voices mingled in a gentle breeze of cooperation. Diane confirmed the procedures to halt any unauthorized changes. "As the original signer, Vanessa, you have the right to pause everything until you personally okay any updates. The manager is waiting on your final say for the catering tweaks and decor adjustments." Diane's voice softened when she added, "It'll cause delays, yes, but better a delay than a disaster." Vanessa exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of months of dismissal begin to shift. This wasn't just about a ruined shower. It was about respect and boundaries being upheld. She felt the pressure of the looming Monday deadline for the wedding headcount, which Vanessa was still tasked to submit. The risk was real. Push back now, and she might disappoint Harper or deepen the family's divide. Stay silent, and her vision and voice would be erased entirely. But Diane's reassurance backed her courage. "Harper loves you," Diane reminded gently, "and she'll understand if you stand firm." Holding her phone tightly, Vanessa realized the choice was hers, to accept the quiet overwriting or to reclaim her stake with clear rules as her shield. She pictured the broken candles and the thrown-aside garlands, but also that crinkled receipt in her wallet. Proof she had the authority, the right to protect not just the event, but herself. Drawing a deep breath, Vanessa felt resolve settle over her like a steady cloak. Today would not be the day she stepped back. It would be the day she stood her ground. If a moment like this ever hit close to home, I'd love to hear how you found your way forward. Vanessa hit send on the email and leaned back against the kitchen chair, the steady hum of her laptop filling the quiet room. Her message was precise, calm, but firm. She'd copied the Buttercup Cafe manager, each vendor involved, even the entire bridal planning committee. The subject line read, "Immediate suspension of all event arrangements pending approval." Attached were scans of her contracts, the booking receipt clearly showing her name, and a highlighted clause demanding her signature for any changes. The unsigned catering upgrades were pointed out with bullet points, leaving nothing ambiguous. Within minutes, her phone buzzed with incoming messages. Group chat notifications flooded in, stirring a whirl of digital murmurs. Shelby's tone was defensive, laced with irritation and surprise. "Vanessa, this is overkill. The team was just trying to help." Yet even among her words, Vanessa caught hesitation, no confident retort, just a flicker of doubt. The power of protocol she'd wielded had unsettled the usually commanding Shelby. Across the thread, others chimed in. Some whispered questions, others expressed disbelief. The tension once masked by polite smiles and forced laughter now spilled into open debate. Harper, her voice unmistakably shaky but honest, messaged privately, "Can we meet? I want to understand everything." That simple request felt like a pivot point, a crack in the wall. Vanessa's fingertips brushed the sweaty condensing glass on her drink as she sat silent, waiting for answers. The atmosphere at home thickened with anticipation, mirroring the storm she'd stirred up in the close-knit circle she'd struggled to belong to. Yet beneath the anxiety, a quiet power settled in her chest. She had followed the rules, leaned on facts, and refused to be sidelined. The blast of reaction around her was not just chaos, it was change in motion. Outside, the sky dipped into evening hues of muted pink and gray. Vanessa's phone pinged again, a calendar invite from Harper for a meeting the next day. The weight of that message was real and heavy, yet not daunting. It was an opening. Amid the sudden upheaval, Vanessa allowed herself a moment to breathe, the steadfast pulse of justice steadying her resolve. The game had changed, and now, everyone was watching. When dignity finally speaks, who tends to listen in your world? The small conference room buzzed quietly as everyone found seats around the oval table, the dim overhead lights casting soft halos on weary faces. Vanessa gathered the stack of printed receipts, contracts, and email threads she'd meticulously organized, their edges worn but solid proof beneath her steady hands. Harper sat across from her, eyes red-rimmed but resolute, the flicker of hurt replaced by focused clarity. The rest of the planning committee and family cluster filled the remaining chairs, glancing between each other and the documents spread before them. Vanessa began, her voice calm yet carrying the weight of every overlooked hour and dismissed effort. "The catering changes Shelby pushed through weren't approved by me," she said, sliding a highlighted contract clause into the center of the table. "The receipts show my name as the sole authorized organizer. Without my written confirmation, none of these alterations are valid." She paused, meeting Shelby's gaze, one flickering with unsettled confidence. Vanessa's evidence was undeniable. "And these," she continued, lifting a photo of broken, spilled candles, "are the decorations that were discarded. It's more than just aesthetics, it's disrespecting the time and care invested." Shelby's voice trembled as she stumbled into an apology. I felt pressured. The family wanted something flashier, more eye-catching. I thought I was helping, making sure the shower felt special." Her eyes darted away, the facade cracking beneath the weight of accountability. "I never meant to undermine anyone." Harper's sigh filled the room. "It's clear now how much you did, Vanessa," she said quietly, reaching out to squeeze Vanessa's hand. "I'm sorry I let this slide and didn't step in sooner. From here on, your vision belongs at the center, where it should have been all along." The room shifted, a collective exhale as vendors nodded and murmurs of agreement spread. The organizer representing the caterers confirmed they would revert to the original menu pending Vanessa's approval, and the event planners pledged to restore her decorations. The tension between Shelby and Vanessa softened as Shelby quietly nodded, conceding her overreach. Vanessa felt a flush of relief and quiet pride. The room that had once dismissed her was now a space of acknowledgement and respect. The fragile glass ceiling she'd bumped against had cracked, and light filtered in where doubt and dismissal once lingered. For the first time in weeks, the future of the celebration felt bright and whole, anchored in fairness, respect, and the quiet strength Vanessa had always carried within her. The rescheduled bridal shower blossomed under a soft spring sun, the Buttercup Cafe's garden patio transformed by Vanessa's handmade touches, strings of small white lights twinkling above, pastel flower garlands draped carefully around picket fences, and vanilla candles flickering gently in glass holders, each stamped with Harper's name. Vanessa moved quietly among the guests, a warm smile steady on her lips as people admired the details she had poured herself into. The weight of weeks past, the strain, the doubts, the dismissals, had lifted like morning fog. Guests lingered longer than expected, snapping pictures by the floral arch and complimenting Vanessa's touch of authenticity. Notes arrived hand-scrawled on delicate cards, thanking her for the heartfelt atmosphere. Harper, radiant in her soft blush dress, pulled Vanessa aside, eyes shining. "I can't believe you made this happen," she whispered. "Thank you for never giving up on this." "On me." Vanessa brushed a stray curl behind her ear, feeling a quiet strength she hadn't known she possessed. Across the crowd, she caught a few familiar faces who had shaded her with dismissive looks before, now exchanging smiles filled with new respect. Shelby lingered on the fringes, her apology sincere and understated, a nod to the lessons learned when kindness and humility step forward. The yellow flower pinned to Vanessa's cardigan swayed gently in the breeze, mirroring the echoes of that day when she first stepped through the cafe door, feeling invisible. That flower was no longer just a piece of fabric. It was a symbol of growth, resilience, and the beauty in remaining true to oneself despite the noise. Vanessa realized that drawing boundaries had been an act of love, not just for Harper or the celebration, but for herself. In those moments filled with laughter, candid talks, and heartfelt embraces, authenticity didn't just win approval, it created connection. Her circle had widened and deepened, drawing in those who valued her honesty and creativity. As the sun dipped lower, casting a warm glow over the joyful scene, Vanessa's gaze softened on the mingling crowd. She knew this was just the beginning, a chapter where confidence wasn't loud, but steadfast, and the quiet heart could finally take center stage, unapologetically. If a moment like this ever hit close to home, I'd love to hear how you found your way forward. If this story resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button. See you in our next story.